Welcome to another edition of WCW How I Would Book It. How I Would Book It WCW 1998. This is Monday Nitro, and we kick the show off with the camera backstage as Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan, and Mike Tenay welcome us to the broadcast, and we see a limousine pull up. 3 men step out, and the 3 men are Randy Savage, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. And the announcers explain that Eric Bischoff, Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Buff Bagwell, and Scott Norton all showed up earlier tonight. And in a different limo. And they question if tension has now reached a point where it's boiled over and irreversible. And the announcers, as we move back into the arena, the announcers bring up the fact that neither with Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Randy Savage, or when Eric Bischoff's limo arrived, did we see Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Hollywood Hogan has been missing in action since Starrcade, when Eric Bischoff said the next night he got called to do a movie in Hollywood, and that's where he's been for the last 3 weeks. But we don't know when he's coming back. But we do know from Eric Bischoff that Hollywood is pissed and seeking revenge. As we move on with the show, Bret Hart's music plays just as the announcers wrap up talking about the whereabouts of Hulk Hogan, and Bret Hart makes his way to the ring to call out Macho Man Randy Savage. And as everybody knows, Macho Man does not turn down a challenge, and Macho Man appears almost immediately following the challenge from the Hitman. And like I've said in past Macho Man promos, because of the fact that it's the Macho Man Randy Savage and Bret Hart, 2 guys that I know could do really well with unscripted promos, I would not script their promos. I would let them talk. I would let them come up with their own promo. I would just okay it and format it into the show. That's it. That's it. Because I know what they want to. I know what I want them. They know what they want to say, and I'm going to let them say it. Because this would be like a borderline shoot. Them shooting on each other, and maybe their pasts or something. I didn't really think it out. Oh, I didn't click. Now we move on to the first match of the night, and that is the Steiner Brothers against the Blue Bloods, which is, if you can't tell, Dave Taylor and Steven Regal. And the Steiner Brothers are in their, I guess, a tune-up match going into their pay-per-view match at Sold Out against the Faces of Fear. And following the match, after defeating the Blue Bloods, Scott and Rick take the mic with the help of Ted DiBiase and call out the Faces of Fear. But the Faces of Fear do not respond, which leads the announcers to think that Jimmy Hart may be holding him back, because it's unlike the Faces of Fear to not respond to a challenge. Now we move on to the next segment, which is another match, and this match would start following a commercial break, and it is Eddie Guerrero defending the WCW Cruiserweight title against the Ultimo Dragon, who won the #1 contender match 2 weeks ago on Nitro to challenge Eddie tonight for the title, and Eddie retains the title against the Dragon. Now we move to the next segment, which is Randy Savage. The camera comes in backstage, a far distant, and we see them they're far distance away from Randy Savage and Kurt Hennig, who seem to be having a conversation. And we wonder what they're saying, so the cameraman tries to get a closer look to catch what they're saying, but as he gets closer, Randy notices him and chases him off, ending his conversation with Kurt Hennig before ending his conversation with Kurt Hennig before we can catch what they're saying. Now we move on to the next match, which is Diamond Dallas Page against Conan. Basically, DDP has been putting forth great matches every week that he's been on the show since Starrcade, and that is why I figured, why not give DDP another match tonight on the show? Who against? Let's put him against Conan. Diamond Dallas will be defending the United States title against an unnamed challenger at Sold Out. I just haven't decided who he will be defending the title against. The fact of the matter is, there was nothing more to this match than to keep putting the ratings getter on the show, and the ratings getter is DDP. Now we move back to the announce position, and just as the announcers are talking up, matches we will see at Starrcade Sold Out, like the tag team title match between the Faces of Fear and the Steiner Brothers. We will see Ric Flair in action. We will see Diamond Dallas Page in action. We will see many of your other favorite WCW superstars in action as well on that night. But just before they continue to announce what they say is going to be the main event, Tony says, I'm getting a notice through my head. I'm being told through my headset that something happened backstage, and we need to get a camera back there as soon as possible to find out. As they dispatch a camera and the camera comes up backstage, we see a ton of officials standing around administering medical attention to somebody on the ground, and the person on the ground turns out to be the Hot Rod Roddy Piper. And that leads people to question, because of his association with Ric Flair, is somebody once again trying to get at the Nature Boy. And now we move to the next match, which is Ric Flair against Billy Kidman. This is no more than a squash match for the Nature Boy, and that leads into this promo, which is nothing short of a shoot. Because Ric Flair says, I don't get it. Since Starrcade, since I came back, somebody has been trying to mess with me. Somebody has been trying to take everything away from me. I never was one to hide behind someone. But whoever is doing this crossed the line when they attacked Arn Anderson. He's retired. He retired because of injury. And now you're attacking my friend Roddy Piper. You're crossing the line again because I'm standing right here. How about you be a man and attack me? Be a man and attack me. You want to make your name off the Nature Boy? Well, you gotta be a man. Show your face and be able to step in this ring and try what so many others have tried before you, and that is to make your name off Ric Flair. I won't stop until you show your face. You want to keep trying to take out people I care about? Fine. But that'll just make me kick your ass that much worse when we finally meet face to face in this ring. I promise you that. As we move to the next segment, which is which is the announcers talking up the main event, Kevin Nash versus the Giant. And they mentioned the fact that Kevin Nash versus the Giant was originally supposed to take place at Starrcade, but due to previous injuries sustained by the Giant, he was not medically cleared to compete at Starrcade, and therefore the match was postponed. And now we move on to the next segment. Following a commercial break, the Outsiders make their appearance on Nitro. And we move to the segment. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. It starts with Scott Hall doing his "I'm here to take a survey. Are you people here to see Hollywood Hogan? Or are you here to see the Outsiders?" And because of the actions of the Outsiders in the last couple of weeks, the people would be cheering for the Outsiders. And Scott would finish off, "We one more for the good guys, because we are just too sweet." Kevin Nash continues by saying, "A few weeks ago, me and Eric Bischoff stood in this ring, and I told it like it is. I said, beyond a shadow of a doubt, me and Scott are sick and tired of being second-class citizens in Hulk Hogan's world. Because Hulk Hogan is an egotistical jackass. And that's why I did what I did at Starrcade, costing him the world title, because he needed to realize that he wouldn't be where he is without me and Scott, and he needed to stop treating us like his lackeys and more like his equals. Hogan needed an ego check, and that's what I gave to him at Starrcade. And Eric Bischoff needed an ego check, and that's why I shot on him 2 weeks ago on Nitro. And we'll do the same thing right now. Eric, you are nothing more than a power-hungry joke who has your head so far up Hollywood Hogan's ass you couldn't. If he came to an abrupt stop, you would end up your head would come out of his mouth. Hulk Hogan forgot that without me and Scott, the NWO wouldn't be where it is. And he needed to remember that without us, the NWO is nothing more than Hulk Hogan trying to relive his past. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, think about it. Hulk realized when he joined us that the red and yellow was dead, and he needed the black and white. Without us coming along, there would be no black and white. Hollywood Hogan would have ended up being a shell of his former self without Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. That leads to Eric Bischoff coming out and saying just one thing. Kevin, those words are big talk for a guy who thinks he knows everything that's going on. Well, and Kevin's like, yeah, I do. Well, how about you ask Scott what me and him spoke about 3 weeks ago on Nitro? Because I think you need to know. And Kevin looks at Scott, wondering what was spoken about, and he's looking at Scott, and Scott's looking a little like he's hiding something. And we move to the broadcast position with Tony, Mike, and Bobby, who talk about what just happened and bring up the possibility of refresh our memories of what Eric Bischoff was talking about, as Eric Bischoff and Scott Hall were caught talking to each other and walking into what seemed to be a private meeting in the NWO locker room a few weeks ago. But nobody knows what was spoken about because we couldn't catch the audio. And then Tony says, as soon as we get more on this story, we will update you. But until then, let's continue with the broadcast. We continue with the show with the main event, the Giant defeating Kevin Nash after a distraction from Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton. And just as Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton are standing at ringside, they wave to the back for somebody to come out, and it's Hollywood Hogan, who has two guys by his side. Number 1, Brian Adams, and number 2, Mike Awesome, walking right behind him, taking up the rear. And Mike Awesome and Brian Adams jump right in the ring and beat down the already prone Kevin Nash after Kevin took the chokeslam from the Giant. But they beat him down even more, leaving a lifeless Kevin Nash in the ring for Hulk Hogan to have easy pickings and end up dropping 3 different leg drops. And the final segment is the NWO standing tall over a prone Kevin Nash, leaving many people to wonder, where is Scott Hall? That was by far one of the worst shows I've ever done in either WWE or WCW. I'm very disappointed in the show, but every show isn't going to be great. Some shows are going to be good, some shows are going to be bad. That's what comes with the territory. It's finding that happy balance. I just want to also mention that due to technical difficulties, the last week's episode of Nitro was not taped, but was written out and posted on the site WrestlingExpress.net, and a link to that post was placed in the description below. If you're curious about what happened last week on Nitro, feel free to click the link and check it out on the website. Also, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below of what you thought of the broadcast. And remember, don't forget to like, subscribe for more content just like this and other fresh content that you can only find on Wrestling Express. Till next time, thanks for joining me.